All right, my darlings, here we are with episode 1, brought to you by our darling Rebecca Logan from Alberta. She came all the way over here. This is so funny. I have to get up once for 1 second and fix this. Further studies. I made a mistake and I had to erase it. This is why we don't use the blackboard very much, because you have no idea how many times I had to redo the blackboard every time I mucked it up. It's really hard to erase it. But I love my old-fashioned blackboards. Anyway, Rebecca Logan, further studies in shadow weave for 4 and 8 shafts. All right. When Rebecca was here in season 8, she presented the Powell method of drafting shadow weave, and it was brilliant. We all decided that we really did like it. It was much easier to treadle. At the end of that episode, I asked Rebecca if she would create me an episode, because she was so into shadow weave, that presented shadow weave in a less busy way, that allowed us to take a motif, create a motif in shadow weave, and frame it on a ground. So we have a motif with horizontal or vertical stripes that is presented on a ground that's the opposite stripes. So if our motif has got vertical stripes, then it's sitting on a ground of horizontal stripes. And of course, when you turn that fabric over, you have the reverse. It will be in the reverse. So she thought that that was a great idea. I also asked her to create an episode where the motifs were sitting within a larger graphic, rather than just having shadow weave going from one side of the cloth to the other side of the cloth. You know me, I always start with the big division of space first. The graphic reigns as my first decision. How do I want this cloth to appear? Could we then superimpose the shadow weave on top of that, which she did, and then out of the blue, she asks me about what if we did it on basket weave. So there's 3 things that are very, very important in this episode. The first one being creating the isolated motifs that sit on a ground. The second being install these ideas into a graphic. And the third thing, superimpose all of that shadow weave knowledge on top of basket weave. So we have 2 projects. We have a 4-shaft project and an 8-shaft project. And each one of those projects has a very, very detailed breakdown of how shadow weave works. There's a review in each one of these of the Powell method of drafting. Shadow weave, it shows that we have 4 units on 4 shafts. And it just goes through step by step by step all the ways that you can use those units and draft those units and make those units symmetrical to create an isolated motif on a ground. So Rebecca presents all of this information in great detail, and then we did our first project. So our first project was quite simple. Here's a graphic. The graphic is a 3-stripe. We've done 3 stripes many, many times, but you can see that we have a motif that's sitting on a ground, on a horizontal ground. So this is a different approach than we usually see. Here's actually probably the very first piece, right there. We have vertical floats in our motif sitting on a horizontal ground. So that was the idea, and it's overlaid on top of a division of space in 3. So it's shadow weave, but it's not that busy, very graphic. Then she played with all kinds of different treadlings. The ground is just as important as the motif. Very, very simple, very elegant. These aren't in order. I really love this one. Here's the opposite of the first one. So here the positions of the motif and the direction of the lines has changed. So it's really the back has come to the front. But that's what we did. And the other thing that's quite interesting is that when we draft this shadow weave on to basket weave, it makes the images bigger, twice as large. That's pretty cool. So the hand is a little thinner, a little finer than if we had done it just in 8/4 cotton. So this was all done in 8/2 cotton, threaded for basket weave. All right. There's a great PDF that steps you through the draft, all the towels and the treadling instructions for all of the towels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit at the end. So this was a good introduction of what we could do on 4 shafts. Probably before we go too far, before we go to the 8 shafts, we should have a quick little peekaboo at what I did with this. So you know me, I love my asymmetry. I love a graphic that is divided asymmetrically in 2. Fibonacci's all over this. So here is our motif of our vertical motif floating on a horizontal ground. It's all, I drafted this entire piece following Rebecca's instructions. So if I can do it, you can do it. This side, I reversed it so that these, I brought another reversal into it. Here we have vertical, and all of these 5 here are horizontal. So I just switched the background and the motif ground and wove it like that. Then I played with changing the colors of all of the stripes. I just brought more color work into this graphic. Here I've changed the direction just like Rebecca did in her first and second pieces. Now the motifs have changed places, same color. Here I elongated everything. But it's all based on what Rebecca taught us in the PDF. Brought in other color and weave sequences down here. So you always start with something, but gosh, there's a million things we can do with it, that we can add to it. And then I think this is my favorite piece in the whole lot, was going to that bobbin drawer and arranging all of the bobbins that I had in some kind of a color gradation. This is so reminiscent of what we created after Rebecca's very first episode on Shadow Weave, and we created those ponyo towels, which are still some of the most favorite. It's one of my most favorite patterns ever that we've created in the School of Weaving. So that was stripes of color moving from one motif to the next. So beautiful. Such a wonderful play of color on one warp. And then I did the same thing, but I used darker colors that were left over in my bobbins. So I had so much fun. It's hard to believe that all of these things come from one warp, but when you've got lots of color in your warp, you get lots of ideas. And then this was where my warp was ending, and I was playing with everything, breaking the rules on how I treadled the 4 treadles. We have 4 treadles tied up to weave the shadow weave. What if I mix them up and I got some pretty darn cool stuff happening here? So that's really playing with it. How can I play with that? And I think I was thinking, I remember when I wove that, I was thinking of 5 picks of huck. Other set of treadles. Other set of treadles. Hear that rhythm? So rhythm is something I always hear at the loom. There's rhythm in every weave structure and every threading, and if we can bring those rhythms along with us for the ride, we can bust the lid off the box and do all kinds of other crazy things. So that's what we did in the 4 shaft section. And then the 8 shaft section, Rebecca created some wonderful motifs on 8 shafts. It goes through a review. So for people who, sometimes our viewers have 8 shafts and they just skip over the 4 shaft stuff. But often there's a lot of important theory in the four shaft. I always feel that if you understand something on four shafts really well, then taking it to eight shafts just is that much easier. So I really do believe we should learn a lot about four shaft weaving first. So that's all in here. All of the reviews from the four shaft starts off our eight shaft, and then it just builds from there. We have more ways to manipulate, more ways to lengthen our horizontal lines and our vertical lines. And the PDF goes through it step by step by step, but not just the PDF, the video. Rebecca teaches this through the video all the way through, and here is our motif. It's a much bigger motif. It has curves. It can do more things because it's got more shafts. But there's our motif with a vertical center sitting on a horizontal ground. We can just have different motifs. So we played with that, learned the theory. So much theory in here. And again, here were the pieces that happened. All these lovely ideas. This is pottery sitting on a shelf. So this is inspired by a ceramic studio in her area. All these beautiful little bowls and urns sitting on a shelf. Columns. I think I have this upside down. I do have it upside down. I was looking at it in the monitor and going, my urns are the wrong way around. So I'll turn them all around right now. Okay, here, let's get these fellers turned this way. Aha. Urns on shelves. Made symmetrical so that if you hang it over something, you've got one side that's the same as the other side. Cool, huh? And this is upside down too. There, bowls on shelves. Urns on shelves, bowls on shelves. The other one had urns and bowls on shelves. And then we did something else. So I always love for weave structures like this, provide you viewers with the ability to learn how to play with these ideas in Fiberworks or iWeave-It. So I asked Rebecca to do a whole section on using Fiberworks, and that's also in the video where she shows how she puts the threading in and then how she manipulates the tie-up so that she can change things. And at the very end of the PDF, this PDF, there's two images that we created on Fiberworks during the filming. And one of them was a loaf of bread. And it has given me great joy to see this on Instagram, several places where people have made towels in bread colors, kind of tan and natural. And you got your loaves of bread. So here are those loaves of bread afterwards. And imagine if that was hanging on your oven door. It's so sweet. And of course, they're symmetrical because they were woven upside down for one half. So this is an interesting way of using shadow weave. Very, very different than what we often see. It's simpler, not as busy, and superimposed inside a graphic. All the things that I love so much. Little paintings. All right. So I think if you're interested in this, if you're interested in more about shadow weave, please watch this episode because it's really good. And the theory in it is impeccably presented. All right. So we're going to move on to number 2.